All right. Next on our agenda today is Mr. Haney. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to request, well, that's the wrong one. What did I do with Mr. Haney's?
I have no
There is
official
one.
request or anything. This is just an
Green Acres.
informational
I
update.
remember now. Mr. Haney had some information for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning. I just kind of wanted to bring you up to speed on kind of where we're at with our campus expansion, I think what I'm calling it these days. So just a refresher, last January, the Berry County Economic Development Alliance hosted or sponsored a morning conference talk discussion on housing in Berry County. And for the first time, I kind of realized that it wasn't just a workforce issue and trying to recruit employees in for some of our larger employers, but it was kind of across the whole spectrum, from economic spectrum to age spectrum. So it was really across all ages and income levels. And it started me thinking about whether or not we had a role to play in that, or there's something that we could possibly do. So I mulled that over for a month or two, and then I asked my board for permission to do a study, just to see if how big the problem was. So we did that study, and I brought that study to you late last spring or early summer. And it indicated that there was a need for 280 independent living units in Berry County, 60 of which would be market rate, 220 of which would be affordable rate housing for independent seniors, and then 60 assisted living beds in Berry County with 30 for dementia care. So it was a larger demand than what I had envisioned even. So with that, I asked my board for permission and came back and asked the Berry County Commissioners, if we did something, would you be supportive of that? And with that support, I went out and we did another market study to say, if we build it, will they come? So I don't want to just build a ball field in the out of a cornfield and hope that people come out to play ball. I want to know, are folks going to come? And that market study came back, and we're thought of very highly in Berry County, and folks seem to be positive about that in comparison to some studies that the Plant Moran Living Forward had done throughout their career and their market studies for other clients. That brings us to kind of where we're at today, and that was the next step, or the last step, which was the sewer line. And so that was the thing that I was really waiting on, because if we had to replace that sewer line from Thornapple Manor into the city of Hastings, that could be very costly and might kind of torpedo this thing before we go anywhere.
That would be very costly.
Yes. So we did a study with Fishbeck's, Thompson, Carr, and Huber out of Grand Rapids. And lo and behold, what their study said is that we're using probably about 10 to 15% of the capacity of that pipe. And if we add 150 units to our campus, we would still have 75% excess capacity in that sewer line pipe. So clearly not a problem for us at all. So we still haven't gotten to any kind of answer that says we should slow this thing down or we shouldn't do this. Our next step in the process, which we have just signed a letter last Thursday, the 2nd, and I had a conference call yesterday afternoon at 4 o'clock with Plant Moran Living Forward. We're going to do the financial feasibility study. So this study, we're going to take a look at what are the financing models that are out there, can we fund this? And then what are the revenue streams going to look like? What are the, from an affordable rate side and from a market rate side, how much can we charge, and will that be sufficient? My commitment to you and to my board has been that we're not going to request any kind of support for this. It has to be self-sustaining. It has to fund itself on its own. So that is the requirement that I have placed on this myself, and I want to make sure that I reiterate that to each of you, that I'm not going to come back and ask for any kind of taxpayer dollars, any kind of taxpayer support for this. The next step, and that we expect that this particular study will take about 8 weeks, so we should hear and get that report back about the 1st of March or maybe the middle of March. And the next piece of that, which we're going to begin contemporaneously, because part of that financing piece puzzle is, what is the location going to look like? And there are, even within the campus site, there are different cost associated with different locations within the campus. So, and whether we do a satellite campus somewhere else, or whether we do something on our campus, even site selection within the campus could have some different cost implications. So site selection is also going to start to take place as well. And we have our first meeting with our construction manager and architect tomorrow afternoon. So to begin that process and looking at what are the costs with the different sites. I guess I just kind of wanted to bring that to you, kind of give you an update of where we're at. As I had promised when I got that sewer study, I wanted to come back and let you know where we were, share that with you, and then see if there's any additional questions or concerns that any of you might have.
Commissioner Geiger.
Thanks, Don. I'm asking this because I have gotten questions in my district on this topic. Specifically because the Thornapple Manor is a millage-supported entity that carries out a specific function. How does this expansion fit within Thornapple Manor's mandate to serve, and how is it not infringing on potential private sector enterprise?
Good question. So I'm going to start back with the foundation of Thornapple Manor. And as most medical care facilities in the state of Michigan, date back to the days of the old county poor farm in the 1800s. In fact, if you look at the campus of Thornapple Manor, there's an old rail bed behind it, and that's where a lot of the folks would get off the rails there and kind of find their way to the farm. If you look to the west, I believe, of the Head Start that's on the campus there, the west of 911, there's a number of gravestones there from folks that back in those times when they passed away, there was no family, no place to bury them, so they just buried them there on the site, on the farm. And so you can see those, there's probably about 15 headstones there, and they're still there. You can still see them. So our mission dating back to the 1800s is always to serve those that are underserved. Right? The crux of the housing need and the independent senior living need in Berry County, 220 of the 280 units, are for supported rate housing, not market rate, not folks that have money. So this is for folks, again, that may have only Social Security or very limited assets, very limited income, and they need housing options. And so we're going to continue that mission that I think that we have always had in terms of serving those that are underserved in Berry County. So I think that's in the wheelhouse of what we do. 80 to 85% of the residents that we see in our building are on Medicaid. So it's a big piece of what we do from a historical perspective and from today's perspective. The second piece of that is, how do we compete and why are we competing with for-profit developers or other folks? And my response to that is this housing need that Berry County has had has been in existence for at least 3 or 4 years that I've been hearing about it on the EDA side, sitting on the EDA Economic Development Alliance Board. And to date, we don't have any private firms coming in to build specifically senior rate independent living at affordable rate housing. We do have now some movement on some supported housing, perhaps in the downtown area, but nothing that's geared specifically towards seniors. And so that's how I would kind of respond to that.
So you've identified a need, it's a persistent need, and you're using what tools you have to meet that need.
Absolutely, correct. Yeah.
Thanks, Don.
What did you say, how many beds did you say are recommended for assisted?
Assisted living beds, they said 60.
Okay,
Assisted living beds, and then another 30 for dementia care specifically.
and then another
Yeah.
30, okay.
So 90 total.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Haney? This is a really tough subject. We all have extended family who should not be living alone, but are, because they keep spinning us and telling us, hey, I'm fine, I got it handled. I 5 years ago had to put my grandmother in a nursing home because her health deteriorated, and I couldn't tell her that I was putting her in a nursing home because she would have fought me. But at the time, she was very ill and didn't have a clue what was happening. She never did recover, But when we got into the house to look at things, there were warning signs all over that she would hide. And I was ashamed not to have noticed them earlier. But if she had had an assisted living place to go to, an alternative to look at, it would have been a whole lot easier. My aunt, who was several years younger than my grandmother, recognized some of those same signs in her own home, and with the help of her children, got into an assisted living place where she didn't have to worry about anything. She didn't have to worry about responding to a bump in the night and going outside and getting confused and lost and whatever. She's now in a place where everything's taken care of. And we have a ton of seniors in our community that have those problems. And maybe the kids have all gone off, grandkids aren't around to check on you. It's a huge need. And so I appreciate your research and your dedication to helping us with that project.
Do we know what the tax status of the housing would be?
Because we are a government agency, anything that we do is by default non-tax, just as the nursing facility is.
Anything else for Mr. Haney? Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Next on our agenda is Tammy Price. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of fiscal year 2020 grant agreement for the Office of Community Corrections and authorize the chairperson to sign the grant agreement.
So moved.
Moved by Smelker, support by Parker. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
So the contract is before you kind of late for several reasons. The state had some budget cuts, and so OCC was waiting to see what those were before they came out with the official awards.
Could you speak into the...
The mic, please, ma'am.
The TV people might complain if you don't talk in there.
And so the contract is a bit late. We reviewed the contract, as did every other county that receives OCC funding, and many of us found some concerns with the contract, and so we I contacted Michael, and he contacted the county attorney to review the contract. So there were some negotiations between the state and the attorney, and we came to an agreement that we could tolerate the contract that they've given us, with the caveat that in the spring, we'll be in discussions with the state regarding the wording of their contract. So at this point, I am asking that you go ahead and sign the contract. I have Michael's blessing and the county attorney's blessing as well, and we'll be working hard to make sure that that contract comes before you before we're a whole quarter into the fiscal year and you're just now signing the contract. We did ask for $124,000, a bit over that. We only received $106,437. At mid-year, the state is telling me that they'll take a look and see if we need some additional funding and where our programs are at that point. So we also had some changes in fringes for one of our employees that will help make up for that discrepancy in the funding.
So was the cut directly related to the vetoed budgets?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for Tammy? Thank you, ma'am, for spending as many hours on this grant stuff as you do. There being no further discussion, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of fiscal year 2020 grant agreement for the Office of Community Corrections and to authorize the chairperson to sign the grant agreement. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brown.
Good morning. I have a request regarding appointing two individuals to serve on the Solid Waste Oversight Committee. It would be the appointment of the recycling industry and then the Berry District Health Department representatives. It's to appoint Eric Schaefer to serve in a position representing the recycling industry, and then Jay Van Stee to serve in a position representing the Barry Eaton District Health Department. Both of these are due to individuals who have resigned from their positions with their organizations and are being recommended.
So I guess at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve,
Excuse me.
the chair would entertain a motion for the approval to appoint Eric Schaefer to serve in a position representing the recycling industry on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee for a 3-year term that began on November 1st, 2018 and expires on October 31st, 2020, and to appoint Jay Van Stee to serve in a position representing the Berry Eaton District Health Department on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee for a 3-year term that began on November 1st, 2017 and expires on October 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Gibson, support by Geiger. Discussion.
I just have a question. Is Jay home-based in Berry County? I think he is, isn't he?
I do not recall. I do not recall.
He oversees the district. The main office is in Charlotte, but
I thought we made agreement once that they didn't have to live here. They do.
They did.
they don't have to
Right.
live here.
We approved that bylaw. Now these are the recommendations from the various committees making the appointments, which we tend to approve.
I don't think he has a set office.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is the approval to appoint Eric Schaefer to serve in a position representing the recycling industry on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee for a 3-year term that began on November 1st, 2018 and expires on October 31st, 2021, and to appoint Jay Van Stee to serve on a position representing the Berry Eaton District Health Department on the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee for a 3-year term that began on November 1st, 2017 and expires on October 31st, 2020. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The item is approved. Next on our agenda is scheduling of the community forum. Mr. Hackman will be here next week for the Board of Commissioner meeting. I think in order to stay with the timeline that we've approved for Tower Pinkster's work, we need to set a next meeting for an open forum. And I think if we wait until next week, we'll be pushing that into February. I think if we went ahead and set a schedule or a day that would work the best for us, we could get it advertised so that we would have enough time to get a good representation to be there.
Were we on a Monday night before?
We were, because we wanted to be able to talk about it the next day. Eric will be here on the 14th, which is a Board of Commissioner meeting. My recommendation is to meet on January 22nd or 23rd so that we can get it into the local papers and advertise it for a couple of weeks before it happens. I have some other things for the following week that we'll talk about next. At night. This would be an evening, 7 o'clock-ish.
Which days?
Either the Wednesday the 22nd or Thursday the 23rd. And then the location as well.
Isn't the 23rd on a Thursday?
Yes?
Okay, I thought you said, all right.
Either Wednesday the 22nd or Thursday the 23rd. And we can try next door again. We can try one of the school districts in the outlying area, just to get a different, representation. But I'd really like to get something on the calendar so that we can keep this ball rolling.
I want something with a big projector screen. Our constituents and people there wanted to see pictures and they wanted to be taken inside the facilities. Does the Performing Arts Center, do they have a projector? Like a big...
There was a big projector.
For the,
What area are you talking about?
Hastings, the new Performing Arts Center. Rebecca, do you know?
I believe they do. They have all kinds of audiovisuals. The director there is a master of audiovisual presentation.
I think the thought was to have it someplace where it was more like a workshop where people sit at a table and write and be able to express ideas and rather than have it presented like a lecture in a
Well, the
hall.
trouble with performing arts, there's a lot of steps in there for older people.
Right.
You need one floor, I think, one level floor, I mean, for,
I can get a hold of the superintendent for TK.
And that's a wonderful option. Maybe like the cafeteria, some of them have,
They
they
got
have seating, they have visual stuff that
tables.
you can use. My hesitation is we need to double check sporting events this time of year because we'll have plenty of basketball games, and I don't want to. I
think
don't want to
Wednes-
double book
Wednesday would be
someplace.
better then, probably.
Well, they
Thornapple
have
Church
crazy
is
times.
a good location too.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
They got two giant screens out there.
Where?
Thornapple
Thornapple
Valley
Church.
Church, Podunk Lake.
That's a good idea.
Their mayor's here.
Yeah.
The mayor of Podunk, no?
I think it's
No,
gonna
he's
be
president of the yacht
important.
Oh,
club.
that's right, president of the yacht club.
We gave him a promotion.
Joel?
The Hastings school system, commons area, it's all on one floor, wheelchair accessible, we got a projector there.
I have been there for a district FFA meet, and you're right. They do have plenty of room to congregate multiple bodies. I'm not close to having it here in town. I also would like to. I mean, this is not just a Hastings issue. This is a countywide issue. So if there's a venue someplace out, someplace Delton or Middleville or even Lakewood, I can assure you that I do not have anything in my district that would hold 100 people.
About this, we'll come back with a list of places in our districts next week that could hold such a forum.
I would
and
like
then-
to get it into the paper this weekend so that we have a couple of weeks to
I
work
can
on
call the
it.
superintendent right after this
If
meeting.
we pick a day and a time with a backup day and a time, that would, and we can maybe get it decided by this afternoon, or we could,
I think
based
we-
on availability.
I think you're right. I think we need to get it in all different areas of the county. One of these, each meeting.
Right.
Whatever meeting we're doing it in a different part of the county.
I guess I have a question for Ben. Do you remember what the occupancy was for the new Bay Corp building?
I do not, but the parking would be limited there, and
Not Bay Point, Bay Corp across the street.
The banquet hall,
The banquet hall that they built this summer?
like 250.
I don't remember.
Yeah, that's got quite a park, that's what I was thinking, it's got quite a parking lot, and I knew they were gonna have some inside weddings, so, I mean, I can check.
Yeah.
So let's hammer our date. I'm fine with the 23rd.
22nd or the 23rd works for me, right now, anyways.
Is there one that works better for?
What's going on at Freeport? We could do it at the Shamrock.
We could.
I'm not sure you can get 100 people in there. I mean, the last group we had just over 100. So I want to make sure that if we have more people show up that we can accommodate. That's why we thought maybe like the school cafeteria or something similar where there's enough seating and tables where people can take notes, because I don't want to discourage people from
There was a lot of room
participating.
at Star School too. We've been there at the gymnasium.
They didn't have a lot of tables there to write, but there was room. And Berry County Christian definitely has room in our gymnasium. We have a lot of seating, not just a lot of tables, so.
We can move on. Let's check Thornapple Valley Church and
Yep.
TK.
Does Thornapple have midweek service?
Have what?
Thornapple Valley Church have a midweek service on Wednesday nights?
Midweeks.
If we go to Thornapple Valley Church.
Oh, church. I thought that
They have a
Thornapple
Thursday
Kellogg.
night service they just started, but they don't have one on Wednesday night that I'm aware of.
Okay.
They're doing away with the Saturday night service and switched it to Thursday night.
Michael, what do you think?
I can reach out to, I think it's where you wanna try to have it. I can reach out to the church. I'm not familiar with that venue.
Right.
So is it, the church itself, does it have do you know, fixed seating, or is it where they put
They're
chairs?
No,
They're chairs.
It's just an open
The chairs are already
auditorium
there.
or open
Yeah.
space?
You need audio-visual stuff, don't you?
The church would have that.
Can we
Well, I
do
know
this
that,
next
but-
thing with Nancy Oley while Michael checks? I'm fine
I
with
think if
these.
we, let's pick a primary date. Which date?
Wednesday.
Okay, Dan wants Wednesday.
I can do Wednesday.
I can do Wednesday.
22nd?
Personally don't care.
That works
Got
for
an
me. I
airport
think I got a
board meeting,
majority
but-
for Wednesday at 7. And if we can't find a venue for Wednesday at 7, we will pursue Thursday at 7.
Okay.
Okay.
And just leave it at Michael's discretion, whichever one seems like it'll work best for us. My choices are like TK or Delton or just outside of Hastings. Nothing against Hastings. We had the last meeting here. I just want to move it to other places in the
Bay
community.
Point is 300. Mr. Minor just checked.
Thank you, sir.
So
Thank
what
you.
are the, real quickly, do you have?
What are we
a-
calling this?
Do you have a preference?
Community dialogue.
I've heard TK schools, Thornapple Valley
Community
Church,
dialogue.
and Gun Lake,
Gun Lake and then Dalton Kellogg
and
School.
then DK. Do you have a preference of
No.
which order I start with?
No, I do not.
Next one, we'll just move
I think-
another one.
I think the two schools are they're going to be contingent upon their sports schedule. If they've got varsity basketball games that night, we're not going to fit.
Well, if you're looking at TK and Hastings, you might as well look at Lakewood.
Right. And that's
Right,
perfectly.
Vivian?
Yep.
Both Lakewood grads.
They are still in the county,
Yeah,
barely.
yeah. Vivian and I are both Lakewood
Alumni.
Vikings. So
Yeah.
we don't forget.
And I think Orangeville too,
Bay Corp.
the Bay Point thing,
Right.
unless he charges it arm and a
The
leg.
only venue I can think of in my district that might fit that many people is
barn.
the fire barn in Johnstown Township. And they do a wonderful pancake supper and they have plenty of space, but I'm not sure y'all would enjoy hanging out in the fire truck bays without a lot of heat. So
Not
and
in January.
I'm not sure their technology reaches out to the fire barn. I know their hall has a really nice setup, but I'm not sure anybody'd be out there in their bibs and their boots waiting for a meeting.
Now, that last meeting we had, I recognized a lot of the people being right from this area.
Right.
Right.
I want to hear from other parts of our community too.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right. So we have the primary date would be Wednesday, the 22nd at 7. Secondary date would be Thursday, the 23rd at 7, and we'll work on a location and we'll get that quickly because I'd like to get it in the mail or in the paper. The next item I have is scheduling a goal-setting session with Nancy Oley. So last fall, Commissioner Gibson and I had a discussion about what our goals are for the rest of our term. And while we have a really big project on our table right now, I don't want to lose sight of all the littler projects that we've been working on. We've worked on leadership development stuff for our boards. We periodically have other projects that come up, some of them out of the blue, like the adoption thing this morning. Other ones sit on our back burners for a while, like the parking lot project. I've been a commissioner 3 years, and that project I didn't hear about until it came up this last spring. So I want to get a list of things that we should be looking at and prioritizing and keep working on while this other big project is in the works. I don't want to drop something and have fallout because we forgot something or we didn't pay enough attention to something. I want to keep the ball rolling and maybe set a pick list like a master's facility plan did once upon a time of are the next projects that we have to take care of. Nancy is very familiar with Berry County and our goals in the past, and I felt that she was a natural to reach out to since she's familiar with us and help us sit down and talk about these things and work on some of the ideas that we have that we would like to see the commission take care of or address either the rest of this term or next.
Will she come back?
I don't know. She said she would. We actually have some days open that we can schedule her. I would like her to come for 2 meetings. So it would be like a Tuesday night and a Wednesday night, or a Monday night and a Tuesday night, just so that she has an opportunity to listen to us and then work overnight and then come back to us the next day and help us finalize what our goals should be or what we want them to be. I really don't want this to be leave a list for the next commission, because we will have an election this year. I would like it to be like a guideline of these are the things that we've identified that may be important. If we all get reelected, then it's a honey-do list of things for us to keep rolling on. But I think that it would be nice for us to have a common set of goals to look at. We picked some really big things to work on the last 3 years, and they were really big things to pick off of our list. What's left?
Now, you think night meetings are the best for them?
I think so. Her availability is evenings. She lives in the Tri-City area, in Midland, and she has work that she does in Lansing, so she's not far, and she could be here for an evening meeting and then stay local and then go back and forth between her other clients on those specific days that we have at the end of the month. So it would be more convenient for her than driving back and forth every day.
If I'm doing for her convenience, we'll have a night meeting and then an afternoon meeting after.
I think it depends on her availability, and she may not be available till like 5 or 6 o'clock.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
if she's not available, maybe somebody else would be then. Why does it have to be her necessarily?
It doesn't necessarily have to be, but she's the one that we've contacted who's very familiar with how we've goal set and stuff in the past. So she wouldn't have the learning curve that other consultants may.
I'm just thinking that it would be nice if we piggybacked a half a day to this meeting here, so we're not.
I understand completely. I do have another job that I leave here for, and it's difficult for me.
Is there a day maybe that the school has off that you could do something like that?
No, our school does not have a lot of vacations. We are looking at plugging through till spring break, which is not until Easter. So I don't have a whole lot of availability during the day.
How long do you anticipate this?
Till midnight, till we get it done. No.
4 hours.
Maybe a couple hours.
So we couldn't piggyback on the BOC on the 28th and then go into the 29th evening?
I think that's too much.
I don't know what her availability is during the daytime. I do know she's available in the evening on the 27th, 28th, and 29th.
You know, Michigan State Extension has people that can kind of.
Right.
I do like David's idea.
Of staying late and then coming back the next night. I can see if that's something that would work into her schedule, but I already know that she's already committed to do other things during some of those days.
Maybe you ought to find out when she's available and bring those dates back to us.
That is when she was available, the 27th, 28th, and 29th. She was originally available on the 30th, but has scheduled something that day. So we reached out to her back in September, and through the fall she got busy with something and then got sick, and then we were just trying to get this on our agenda so that we can stay focused.
One of those.
I don't want to lose sight of stuff during this Tower Pinkster project.
One of those nights is the State of the State. I would not be available to attend that night.
Isn't
Understood.
that usually on a Tuesday?
They usually coordinate it so it doesn't interfere with the President's State of the Union.
Oh,
So
okay.
it really depends on the White House.
If you could get
On
those,
Tuesday?
if you could get those dates, so that we don't have that conflict.
Monday's not good. Tuesday, Wednesday I could make work, but we'll see what bends.
Okay.
Comes up with.
If I can have somebody fill in for me.
Where, here?
Yeah, yeah, it's not like I work in the governor's office anymore. I'm in the legislature, so, I'll do what, is good for everybody else.
Me too.
Wednesday, Thursday, whatever.
She's not available on Thursday. So, she's available, I think Tuesday, Wednesday sounds like there's not as many conflicts as Monday.
Is it just goal setting?
It is, it's more or less a workshop for us to see what's next on our plate to try to accomplish. We had the leadership workshops that we had originally worked with Berry County leadership to do, and that's kind of fallen apart because the person providing the workshops no longer works for Leadership Berry County. And so if I want to look at all of the little things that we've talked about and maybe forgotten about,
Yeah.
to see if they're worth keeping on our plate or if we just
I think it's
put
important to
'em to
see
bed.
what you have done too. And
Right.
it'll surprise you.
So when you make a honeydew list and you bullet point everything that you can think of and you can check off 2 or 3, it makes you feel better about your honeydew list. Oh, yeah, I've got that done. I don't have to do so much. If there's still big projects on there that we need to accomplish, it would be nice to identify them and keep them on a checklist for us to do.
Good idea. We can't let the urgent crowd out the important.
No,
There's a lot of good stuff that
we
we
are
can be doing.
extremely reactive to things in our community, and I think that we need to take a better stance at being proactive and planning for the future generations. And what happens when our population just grows exponentially and we have to add another commissioner? Will we have enough space here? Do we have to look at different accommodations? I mean, there's a lot of
Recession.
things that we need to look at.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm worried about.
Well, January is getting pretty loaded up here.
it is, and it's getting pretty short too.
Can't we wait till
So
February for those things?
We could. I can see what she has available in February, but
I really don't think it needs to be a certain person if they know how to go through and just set up goal setting, strategic planning.
she has worked with us in the past, not during this term. So I just felt that she was
If everybody
familiar
else
with
thinks
how we
that she
work.
should do it, then that's fine.
I don't care, I'm just saying Nancy, I have worked with Nancy.
Portable.
She, not saying we always got along, but I don't always get along with anybody.
You keep saying that. All right. So,
I have to sit next to him. It's all right.
I did for 2 years. All right, Michael, what do you think? If we
Clear as
can
mud.
Schedule the 28th and 29th, we'll get with Nancy to see if that works. See what she has for earlier availability
And
on the
just go with
28th.
Whatever.
If she's available,
works.
like in the afternoon or something that day? Or like right after Board of Commissioner meeting instead of in the evening? I don't know what her schedule is, I can't remember, so.
Where does she live?
Midland.
So she's probably gonna stay in a hotel if we can do it the
But
next
she
day.
has a client in Lansing that she works with, and that's why she felt that she would be in the area within an hour anyways, so. So, thank you for indulging me. Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Hello again. Just some things to put in perspective here. As far as the U.S. and their taking on of immigrants, I am all for immigration. In fact, an interesting statistic that kind of hit me like a brick wall the other day. I heard that, and confirmed as well, that out of the 360-some million, I believe there are citizens here in the U.S., over 50 million of those were not born in the U.S., and that number and the percentage continues to increase even under the current administration. One thing that I very strongly caution the board on, and I am dead against, is any activity at all cooperating with the United Nations. Giving unconditional consent to an organization cooperating with the United Nations is, in my opinion, very dangerous. This is the United Nations that is currently investigating human rights violations in the United States. It's laughable. The same United Nations that condemns Israel for protecting its citizens from constant rocket attacks across their border. Israel is arguably our greatest ally and unarguably the best advocate and stronghold of human rights in that entire region, if not continent. The same United Nations that props up a terrorist organization such as Hezbollah's group, who is sending these into our ally. Now just put this into perspective. If Toronto, Ontario were to send a missile into Buffalo, New York, or Detroit, Michigan, would we not respond with some type of great, I would like to think, military feat that has never been seen by the world before? This happens all the time, and this organization who is condemning us in human rights violations is recommending that certain people be placed in our custody. It just doesn't make sense. It's oxymoronish. Human rights are, if we are accused by this organization for human rights violations, what position are we to take in refugees? I don't say that to block legitimate refugees. I say that because this county should not only refuse to work with the UN, but should sanction its ability in this county as much as possible. One thing that the timing on this being as late as it was, I take great issue with that. I think that this board has put more focus and discussion on the Animal Shelter Advisory Board than it ever has on foster care, adoption, and so forth. I find that wrong. I'm not necessarily stating that we should put Mark Englerth in charge of the cats at the animal shelter, but that being said, I think that our focus here is drastically wrong. What's more important? Foster care, which is a critical need here in this county, especially with the meth epidemic that we have, or animals?
Any other public comment today? Hearing none, is there any other business to come before the committee? I would like to thank my student Braden for coming with me today. He has done an excellent job. And I do have to get him back before lunch. So.
Does he want to talk?
We all think you got an A.
He sometimes likes to talk in class, but not here. So, thank you. There being no further business without objection, the committee is adjourned.